Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar produced by Business Performance USA. You know, we're always glad to have these meetings on Tuesday, and we're glad that you've decided to spend a little time with us today as we talk about core teaming, something that's really important in our business world today and in all of the aspects of our lives. I mean, we even think of our family as teams at times, right? So today we're going to hear from Dr. Jefferson Stewart, who's going to be talking about this concept of core teaming. Now, I want to tell you real quickly about Business Performance USA. We do produce weekly webinars on Tuesday at noon Central, and we provide a variety of business insights on topics important to business professionals. We are an organization of volunteer executives and a voluntary association as well, and we provide this online business information exchange for you every Tuesday. So you can join us anytime on all kinds of very interesting topics and hear from a broad variety of people from around the U.S. who like to share their wisdom. So today, what I want to do is go ahead and tell you that I am, and let me quickly change this slide. You're not seeing slides. Okay, let me make sure that I've shown my desktop. And okay, there we go. You're seeing here Victor Dominguez, Cynthia Stewart, and Dr. Jeff Stewart, all co-founders for Business Performance USA. I am Cynthia Stewart. I'm managing partner with Evermore Services, your partner in building tomorrow's businesses today, and I'll be your host for this hour. Now let's talk about Dr. Stewart, who will be our presenter. But first, let me make sure that this hour is worth your time. And by the way, we do try to keep these to about 45 minutes because we know lots of folks have meetings at the top of the hour, so we'll watch that time. If you do have questions today, go ahead and use that chat feature or question feature on your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel, and you can type in questions, and I'll be sure to ask those questions during this webinar and give Jeff a little bit of time to answer those questions. And we are recording this today, and we do record all of our webinars. All you need to do is just sign up, go to businessperformanceusa.org. Also, you can watch us on YouTube channel, user bpusa.org, and both of those ways you can see all of the webinars. So let's first do this. Let's talk about Dr. Stewart and introduce him to you. Dr. Jefferson Stewart has been serving Fortune 10, 100, and 1,000 firms for more than 30 years by focusing top leaders on critical dimensions of core intellectual properties and on timing rapid market entries for their emerging businesses. As a prime coach, innovation catalyst, and lead communicator for global enterprises, Jeff executes core competitiveness improvements based on integrating asset management, accelerating business turns, and creating sudden growth collaboration and alliance building. During the last 20 years, Jeff has been shepherding private and public paradigm shifts among providers of high-performance management and competency-based learning solutions, as well as among owner-operator teams of seamless enterprise resource planning-driven firms in their extensive global ecosystems. Dr. Stewart also serves now as the Chairman Emeritus of the National Advisory Council for American Society for Competitiveness, and he is very knowledgeable in the drivers of core competitiveness. And he'll share some of those thoughts really in his presentation today. And for over 50 years, he's been very loyal to, as an ordained elder to his faith communities, as well as a loyal Eagle Boy Scout of America. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to our presenter, Jeff. Okay, Jeff, let me set you up with your first slide, and I'll go on mute, and we turn it over to you. Be sure to unmute for us.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Let me plug this in a little better so that maybe it's a little crisper on the less background. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right. So one of the things I just did is based on our trust economy. We have moved so far into a trust economy with feelings that are really legacies of the economy we're moving out of that we don't even notice when we do things to facilitate the trust economy. I just plugged in my earbuds to the computer in order to get a more immediate pickup and to therefore be more immediately present to this online space. In a way, that means that I'm trusting you and you're trusting me to be worth the time in a very immediate way. Now, I'm not saying immediate gratification. I am saying, in fact, that we have a way of being immediate in each other's lives, of getting rid of what normally would be distractions and focusing intensely for a few moments at a time on critical information, intelligence, and meaningful experiences. Those are things that belong to the trust economy. So what I'm going to do, since I delivered the first part of this in a different webinar about 6 months ago, I'm going to do a quick review of the trust economy and what it means and what it's involved in, and then I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the trust economy and look at the core, that is core teaming. So the trust economy belongs to people who pollinate. We all have our field of dreams. You may recall the movie, and it was about the guy that built a baseball field in the middle of nowhere in a cornfield, and dreamt that he was talking to his father and all the greats from the origins of baseball in the Midwest. Actually, baseball originated in upstate New York and migrated to the Midwest at the end of the 19th century as part of the emigration from the burnt-over district of upstate New York. Burnt over is a reference to the amazing enthusiasm that found its way into creating idealistic and utopian communities in upstate New York at that time. Today we're doing the same thing. We're creating ideal worlds in the internet, and as a result we have a field of dreams that is moving around the planet very quickly. And what we're trying to do is pollinate it with the best ideas that everybody can bring to the game, or anybody for that matter, for tomorrow's generations. So in the best sense of the word, as we move forward with the word, the trust economy exists in order to secure better homelands. Now notice that I've used the plural there. We in America use the phrase homeland security. But the word homeland is common to all kinds of peoples all around the world. So I want to be sure you understand that I'm intending not a domination model here, but an independence model that relies upon people being able to engage. So the trust economy exists to secure multiple homelands, and that's a very important feature. Would you please move the slide? The trust economy is based on working knowledge. Oftentimes we go to school and we say, well, what's in the book is not what happens in the real world. Well, working knowledge, whether it's in the book or in the real world or online or available when you need it because you tripped over it and it was useful getting something from point A to point B, is what makes trust economy valuable. Now, economics, as you know, is about two basic things: production and value exchange. So when the means of production is knowledge and it has to go to work, that means it takes people and intelligent or programmed machines to take those concepts and allow us to grab onto what's valuable property. So the idea of exchange is critical, and followed with the idea of coherence. That is to say, it's not only coherent, it not only hangs together and makes some sort of sense to us, but what we've exchanged is valuable property, and in one way or another it's being held in trust by somebody who acts as a trustee for the benefit of another party. You might think of that as a bank, you might think of that as an uncle or an aunt, you might think of it as a child. depending upon which direction your hopes for the future move and how you have organized your assets and resources to be of use. And finally, there is a third element in the trust economy besides exchange and coherence, and that's plenitude. Now, that is an old-fashioned word that has a newfangled meaning. Plenitude really, quite literally, means fullness, that at every moment we know that it's not just seeing a cup half full instead of half empty. It is, in fact, filling the cup for those around us and moving the cup around, and it somehow, by the value of a trust economy, remains full for everyone who takes a sip. So plenitude is value creation, and it can be trusted to avoid empty gestures. Empty gestures, you know what that means. That's the falderall that a courtly person would go through in order to impress the onlookers in the court. Empty gestures would be, looking your best and having nobody to see you. Empty gestures would be getting an invitation to a party that didn't occur. In any event, we all want to be trusted to avoid empty gestures and fulfill all the expectations we create among those who have a stake in what we're about. If you're wondering how this applies to you, ask yourself how you may have entrusted what you do and to whom you have entrusted it when it comes to your team's future in the workplace. Just keep asking that, and what will happen is amazing in the way you reflect on the world around you, especially the world of work. Go ahead, Sin. So,
Jeff, Victor here.
Hey, Victor.
Hey, I love you speaking on this topic. It's one of my favorites and one of the most lacking. So just to, if I may opine a little and add some practicality or steps to the trust economy, and you, Cynthia, and I know this as well, and we practice it with any team. Trust is, of course, critical in the economy and going out into the marketplace, but I know the three of us believe it begins greatly internally with our own employees and our own teams, like you're talking about. The simple four-step rule that we follow for our audience to understand is respect, trust, advise, and change. It really begins with respect, but even in a somewhat toxic environment, or environment where trust has not been earned, the first step is to show respect and dignity with others, and simultaneously, almost instantly, when you demonstrate respect, you begin to earn trust. With trust, you can begin to advise others on little things and big things. And with that advisory role that goes both ways, then you can truly change an organization. So it's respect, trust, advise.
Thank you, Victor. I really appreciate that. Getting people into their behavior is a key part of what I'm going to talk about next. So I'm going to move along right now and finish a review of what I presented in March as quickly as possible. The fact is, we all have to learn something about work in order to get by. Now, getting by is not what most of us are really about. Most of us really are getting on with life, not just getting by. Getting by is less important than going to the corner store to buy a pound of sugar if you're trying to bake a cake. You know, getting by is less important than, what can I say? It's less important than your regular daily activities. Getting by is just basically making it. It's mere survival. So what happens in a trust economy is we seek to thrive. What we seek to do is to operate with a certain enlightened attitude toward our own interests so that they serve the interests of others. That's the very least that we can do in order to thrive. So anybody who is working as a knowledge worker, that is to say, in a team where they share what they know how to do with what others know how to do and what they've heard that somebody else has done that may be better than either of you, or any of you, it means that you're a person who validates data. You go out there and you make sure that it's from the right source, the right type and the right kind of application. In terms of that, you carry it further in discussion and you add structure to that in and around what you do. You get very specific and build information. And then you apply the information in your specific case in an intelligent way. You follow the purpose that you've been chartered to accomplish, and you make decisive moves. And in those moves, what you do is you begin the process of imagineering. Now, that's not a made-up word from Dr. Stewart. That is a word that's been around in the first world and in the second world economy for approximately 80 years now. It was Walt Disney who came up with Imagineering first, and we all know what he created. It's been used in the world of operations management, in the world of professional problem solving, and so forth and so on, to indicate what happens when we apply our holistic faculties as people to the process of finding meaningful outcomes. And in this case, we're looking for meaningful business experiments, that is, on the knowledge side of business, where we learn more and better how to do things with the best available information, and experiences, where we're building a brand awareness not only in our own company, but amongst our customers and our clients. So as we move forward then, Cynthia, I would like to address the next area in the knowledge economy, because knowledge workers are the opposite of polluters. Polluters kill. Polluters kill everything in sight, either in the immediate sense or over the long term. Knowledge workers do not pollute, they pollinate. So working in the world of efficiency and effectiveness, that is, of production and economics, we build trust and we pollinate the future for others who will come along behind us. Knowledge workers, as a result, value certain characteristics about their cultures, about their teams. They value integrity, that is, standing your ground and not being two-faced. They value accountability. That means the ability to tell a story that makes sense given the data at hand and is clearly not divisive or duplicitous. It means authenticity. It means being who you are and empowered to be who you are to the fullest sense of engagement required by the charter under which you're working. And it means results. Not insults, it means results. It means things that come together from mutual influence for the greater good. So knowledge workers end up creating trustworthy economic value. No matter how many dineros may be in circulation, the value of that coinage will be exactly what we contribute to it. And if we have failed to contribute to it, no matter how much currency we may circulate, we will be worth less and less. So the more we produce, the better we produce it, and the more regularly we deliver on our word, the more trustworthy our economic value becomes. And knowledge workers are at the heart of that in a trust economy. May we move on, please, Cynthia? So now I want to dive deep. Now, some of these things you may see if you go back and look at the webinar I gave last March. But what I've done here is gotten more explicit about some of the dynamics involved, because underneath all of these fine and fancy words are some pretty technical issues that we have to deal with, like social intelligence and emotional intelligence and purpose in action, that is action intelligence, or we have to worry about the overall dynamics of our relationships and how that relates to our ability to carry forward and bring value through our teams, what we call relationship capital. We have to worry about business intelligence, that is to say, is the work that we're in the process of accomplishing actually delivering and getting better as it goes all the time? Is it intelligent business? And is it serving not only our firm, but other firms and those within them just as well, and in the community at large? In general, we have to look at questions like competitiveness and collaboration. We have to know that when we're competitive, what we're doing is leveraging our teamwork, our collaboration, our coworkers, and our ability to create work and deliver results on all sides at all times wherever our charter takes us. This is really critical stuff, because underlying all of this, is a question of your life. When you go to work, you're putting a heck of a lot of your life into the game. And what are you going to get for it? What are you going to give others for it? Is there a balance in the co-working, and is there a balance in the competing? Is it more than, quote, just the game? Are you able to play the great game of business and bring joy to others as well as enjoy the game yourself? In that sense, are we really people of good character, and are we able to characterize the world in a way that says, what we are leaving behind and what we are sending forward is indeed better than what we received and what we could ever have imagined? I'd like to move on now, Cynthia, because core teaming triangulates using the valuable points of, excuse me, could we go back one? I cued you too fast. Core teaming triangulates using valuable points of view to influence work in process. This is a loaded statement, and it's loaded because it applies not only to the mathematics of work in process, but it applies quite literally to the way we see ourselves and each other see us, and how we see outcomes that we influence but may not control ourselves or even be able to discipline. On the whole, what we have to do is focus. When we characterize what we're doing, when we say this is our process and this is what we're adding to it, and as a result we're going to contribute to value creation with others, basically we are expecting certain results, and so are others, and we characterize those results in a way that energizes our work ethics and that entrusts cultures. We trust the organizations we're in, we entrust our cultures, whether they're personal cultures, neighborhood cultures, other mediating structures like businesses and institutions. We entrust them with our actual lives in the present, because we know that the legacy we've received is good raw material for a better world as we plant the seeds of that world going forward. The expected results energize. That is to say, they put value from our own intentions into work. That's quite literally what energize means. To take intention and put it to work. To have a purpose and to make something that you're proud of. And that's where work ethics come from. Notice that I've made it plural. Everybody likes to opine, oh, nobody's got a work ethic anymore. You just can't count on these people of whatever generation to have an ethic for work. Well, maybe they do. Have you listened to their terms of work? Have you listened indeed to the values that they want to implement in the world of work that you're in? Please, open your mind, open your heart, and entrust your culture. Become part of it, become active, engage it. Put something in the pot of yourself in actual life and play the cards as they fall. If you don't want to continue the round, drop out. Okay, let's move on then, because a lot of this I've covered before. What I'm trying to do is get across the part about core teams. Now, in the center, you notice that what we have is this little trefoil, this little three-leaf thing that's green. That is a triangle too, and that's the triangle of integrity. You know, if core teams breed trust, then what they do for others as well as themselves is create integrity. It's not so much whether your work and your life are in balance, because in point of fact, it's a dynamic balance. It changes all the time. You know that. Whether you live with roommates, live alone, and go to somewhere else to have fun, whether you have a family and blah, 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 you know that things intervene and everything's in dynamic balance. That is to say, it's changing all the time, and you're always seeking equanimity, a little quiet spot, a little place, a little purpose to find yourself. A key point that the teeter-totter of life can use as a fulcrum. Well, that key point turns out to be integrity. If you find your integrity, and you build that into the process of going to market. Notice integrity is across the top of that inverted triangle on the make market side. Then you'll find out that the market is very happy to see you indeed. Now you can take integrity on either of the other vectors that are there on design development and on discovery innovation, and it works the same way. I was simply trying to make the point that integrity in the market is where relationship capital begins to create an economy. So core teams get results, and that breeds accountability, because our results are the things that say, wow, I got a deliverable here. I can take it and be accountable for what I've received and what I'm going to make out of it and deliver to somebody else or something else. And so there we go. Going to market requires constant innovation. It requires being able to improve the process that you're in at any degree of organization in a culture. And I didn't mean by that an academic degree. I meant a real world, knowledge working degree of accountability. And it is marked by your character and by your integrity. Can we move on, please, Cynthia? Yeah. So economic value creation triangles. It gets really weird. Why does this apply to mathematics? Well, because, you know, there's this funny field of mathematics that crops up in all kinds of MBA type decision sciences called trigonometry. When you notice that forces influence each other, they're called vectors, and those forces have a direction from point A to point B, and they have a certain length that represents their value. And if you attach two vectors together, like at the bottom of that inverted green triangle, you see them sort of pulling in different directions. Well, if you were to have all of them pulling at once, where would they pull toward? They'd pull toward that center. Now, the fact is, the center of a triangle is a pretty special place because it creates three triangles out of one. Now, why is that important? Because it gives us the opportunity to visualize three dimensions. All you have to do is tilt that flat plane just a little bit and see that center as an apex where three triangles meet, and you have a three-dimensional representation in two dimensions. So it's really important to know that as you change the rules of the game and you tilt the plane of your business activity in your favor or in somebody else's favor, that you're creating a three-dimensional view because you have shifted your point of view, and therefore you've become more aware of multiple locations or loci of control. Now, a locus of control, by the way, in social psychology simply means what we call ego in common terms. Ego is a received term of the 19th century and Latin that it really doesn't mean very much. What it simply means is that when we look back on things, the rearview mirror gives us a perfect image of where we've been. Really? Have you ever looked in your rearview mirror and noticed how much you miss just sitting still? Imagine once you start moving in some direction. Well, you know, the past is not perfect, and neither is the future. There's a lot we don't know about the past, except our own itinerary, and there's a lot we can't know about the future unless we have an itinerary. So by finding the loci of control, that is to say, the various parts and roles that individuals play and the responsibilities they have, we also begin to realize the connections or relationships that I'm calling spans of discipline in this case. Whether we're moving up the pyramid or down the pyramid, whether we're moving around some edge of the pyramid or at some point along a pyramid, whether the pyramid is inverted or not, we are still dealing with spans of discipline, and that is forward-facing, not rearward-facing. So we can talk a lot about how that shifts the background and the foreground because we know that there's a lot we don't know. And that means that the less we know and the more we know what we test and do know, the more we've got to say to make sure and replicate and make sure that everybody is in the picture on that knowledge. That is, communication makes a big difference. Now, communication takes many forms. In this background and foreground shot, I've noticed that leadership is in the marketplace. We're talking about business. I've said execution is where your intention feeds the marketplace and what you're inventing for the future. And I've said that your management is what takes what you're inventing for the future and makes it part of your improvement process, your innovation as a culture as you go into the market. So leading and executing and managing are three kinds of communication that are very distinct. And of course, we know from our experience in the workplace or our experience at school how much training it takes to get a good communication plan into action and to keep communication working so that we're all basically playing the game from the same playbook. Can we move on now, Cynthia? So what we want to do, and the important part here, you'll notice that there are a bunch of distributions here. The important part I'm going to talk about here is the green curve. It's a standard distribution curve, and it's green, and there's a question mark in the middle, and it has arrows going two ways. So what's at stake here? When we basically scope out a problem, we're looking for the normed operating procedure or the standard distribution of events. That is that red curve. And when we scale, we're looking for, you know, whatever it takes that has worked and how far we can take it, or actually how much we can do with it for how many, and what it takes to go there. What are the constraints? What are the limits? What are the things we have to do when it comes to supply and demand and so forth and so on, the entire demand supply chain. So logistics plays a huge part in that green distribution curve, and of course the blue curve is what we call reach. The blue curve in this case is where we're completely focused in what we're doing, and the results speak for everybody and drive us to levels of excellence and performance that are well beyond anybody's expectations. We are indeed going the extra mile. Focusing on results means that by going the extra mile, we begin the process of excelling at what we do and at how we work together and in how we live together and how we create the trust economy. You know, trust is such an excellent thing. No, trust is no thing. Trust lives in relationship between people like the spirit of the Corps to the Marine Corps. You know, esprit de corps is the French phrase the Marines brought back from the early part of this country. And it means literally the relationships among people that make that group a single unit. A solid, high-performing, focused, self-defending, and defending of others kind of unit. They'll do what it takes, and they'll also recognize the civil virtues involved. They will be, when not engaged, as genteel and as amazingly characterized in their civilian life as, oh, the greatest dancers in the world or the greatest symphony orchestra conductors. There's a thing about the human heart that takes orchestration beyond just versatility and accomplishment into something that we have called for centuries now virtuosity. It's where the things that we value empower all of us to step up the game and to step forward for the future and to step into the lives of our children and our friends and to make a great difference. That's called going the extra mile. And that's the extra mileage that excellence demands. So if we can move beyond this picture, Cynthia, I'd like to go next because I'm going to tie off here. The trust economy belongs to you. That is, to you, whoever you are, pollinating the field of dreams today for tomorrow's generations. Now that's kind of a song I sing to myself every day these days. I want you to enjoy what? Not only great operating efficiencies, not only amazing organizational culture and quality and excellence, but I want you to enjoy owning up to working together, to coming to work with great anticipation and enthusiasm, for goodness sakes. That's right, for goodness sakes. It's not just delivering the goods, it's being good about delivering the goods, making it good goods, the kind of thing that everybody says, we can work with this and continue to make it worthwhile for others. So in the end, as you say all these things and you recount your stories and become more and more accountable, the stories you live by become what hold your core teams together. That's right. The stories you live by. Are they war stories? Or are they stories that go with a hope chest? Are they stories that tell who the hero is and the heroine is? Are there stories that say, we helped? Are there stories that say, by God, I love inventing this future? Are they stories that say, our team makes all the difference? Are we resilient? Do we adapt? Have we taken initiative lately? Is leadership something that we're proud to pass on, not only amongst each other and around our firm, but when we go home with our families and our children and our friends and out having a Friday night or whatever? Thank God it's Friday, TGIF, because the stories you tell on Friday are the stories you will start to live in earnest at home, on your weekend, when you take some time to yourself, and when you hit work again on Monday. When you hit work? No, when you engage. Don't go in there with violence in your mind. Go in there with a desire to create a peaceable kingdom that is not separated from everybody else, that is not anti-heroic, but indeed brings the heroism of the human heart back into the workplace and values it like never before. So in the end, like I'm talking here and giving you my words, I want you to go to work and give your word, beginning to yourself and your teammates, that you will move forward and that you will trust and that the economic value you create will better secure not only our sovereignty in our homeland, but will work in such a way that we have given our word forward and created a trust economics that better secures sovereign homelands all over the world. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Jeff. We have a couple of minutes and a couple of questions that we'd like to pose to you. We have one listener that said, I thought of trust as tangible, but are you saying that trust is more like gravity? It has a pull, but only its effects can be felt?
Wow, what a great analogy. Wow. Oh, man. I just love that. Yeah, trust is like gravity. In fact, uh, in my world, I happen to be an aficionado of dance and of contemporary dancers and all the amazing extreme athletics that they bring to the art of human movement. Um, I am a fan of a particular young dancer who has just entered the world stage, and he and his partner uh, move me like none others because they trust gravity and they use the gravity of the moment to entrust themselves to their world, to their audience. In my way of thinking, they inspire us. They lead us forward and they inform us and they help us identify our opportunities and to implement ways of feeling about each other that we should institutionalize anew as we move forward in our daily affairs. Now, is that making too much out of a dance performance in a foreign country? I think not. It is happening in our world. It is happening in ways that surely are global because of the internet and great forces that are well beyond our control, which I've addressed in other quarters. But the fact is, it's not too far away, and it's just as immediate as we choose to make it. So if we put intermediation in place because we feel a potential for conflict and we need to find constructive ways to move forward, that's well and good. But if we have reformed ourselves and restructured our lives and re-envisioned our future and sown the seeds of purpose going forward, I promise you, intermediation will become a technical skill, not a requirement to make the bread rise and be better in the morning. So, yeah, it's a lot like gravity. It pulls you. It's part of the demand-pull economy, and the effects are felt in an emotional and dynamic way that we frequently don't like to acknowledge because it's so hard to be, quote, rational and balanced when we're dealing with the dynamics of being human. Emotional intelligence brings the reason capabilities of human beings into play with the real world. And as a result, leads us to appreciate the actions we take, that is to add value and to create value. That's what appreciate means. So yeah, great moves, great dance. It's a great game of business.
We have another question that I think is pretty interesting, Jeff. Sometimes in the short term, companies without integrity can create a competitive edge. How can one compete with integrity in the short term and the long term?
Oh my goodness. Well, the only thing I can tell you is rise to the challenge. You know, sometimes a short-term edge brought into play by a person who is not cooperative or collaborative, but who's collusive, that is, who's playing a game of their own with others who really have no intent to ever be part of what you're doing, but only to diminish it or destroy it. Sometimes that advantage is a false advantage. It's like a false dichotomy. It's not that we should give in if we're in a minority. In fact, it's that we should stand firm and understand that in the right light and in the right set of actions and in the right frame of mind and in the right mix of people, we will rise. We will rise to meet the opportunity, and the challenge will become the privilege of our lives, the link that gives us a special place of our own. That's what privilege quite literally means, the link that makes our world special. And it may be the game room down the hall that everybody takes a break in when they're tired of solving, mathematical problems on the job or doing data analytics. It may mean that special place in the garden outside your home if you're able to enjoy such things. Or it may be, cooking in a wonderful kitchen. It could be a simple kitchen. It could be a wood stove. It could be a fire on a campout. It could be a cruise down a stream when you take a week or so to yourself and find the peace within that is so hard to find when you're surrounded by the hurly-burly and the topsy-turvy of a constantly competitive and collaborative world.
Well, given the time, we will get back with those that have asked. There's a few more questions, but we're closing in on the hours. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and let the audience know that we are going to be hosting a webinar next week. We have Kathy Wright from the Institute of Conversational Fundraising. Kathy and her partner, Kent Stroman, who founded the Institute, have been very popular speakers. And Kathy, throughout the years, has found that a lot of people need and want to improve their listening skills. And so she's got the keys to better listening, and she's asked me to work with her on this webinar. So she'll be presenting that next Tuesday, Keys to Better Listening. With that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and invite our audience to join us at businessperformanceusa.org. I'd like for you to be sure to sign up as a member, and that way we can keep you informed of our excellent webinar series that we do every Tuesday. And we want to thank you for being here today, for asking those great questions, which Jeff really loved, and also for tuning in week after week. We appreciate all of our loyal followers. Thanks so much for today. Go out and make it a great week, and we'll see you back next week. With that, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the webinar. Thanks, everyone.